to the Curious Kid podcast. People often keep secrets, things that they may not want to share with other people for one reason or another. Maybe they are embarrassed about sharing something personal, or scared of what others might think if they found out about the secret. I think it's fair to say that some people have more secrets that they are hiding than other people. In this week's episode, we are going to learn about interesting people that have so many secrets, you can say that their whole lives are a secret.
Double mailbag!
Double mailbag! Hi, my son Jude, 7, from Blackstown, Sydney, Australia, loves your podcast. He has been asking me for weeks to send through his Curious About request. Jude would love to know more about spy gadgets. Hi, we are Maddox, Rowen, and Evander, 3 brothers from Pittsburgh who love your show. We love to pretend we are spies, and are curious if you could teach us about them. Thank you for doing what you do. We have learned a lot.
Wow, those were fantastic messages. We are so excited to learn all about spies and spy gadgets this week for Jude, Maddox, Rowen, and Evander.
It's going to be so much fun. We should probably start things off by defining what a spy is.
A spy is someone who tries to get secret information. While they are spying, spies pretend to be someone else so they can hide their true identities.
Some spies are trying to steal such sensitive information and are so worried about getting caught that they actually hide their true identities from their families. So if I were a spy, I might make everyone around me think that I'm a pharmacist, but maybe instead of going to the pharmacy every day, I'm really on super secret missions to steal important information.
But you are a pharmacist, right, Dad?
Of course I'm a pharmacist. Or am I?
All right, enough of your silliness. Spying is not only for adults. There are children that are spies also. Sometimes it makes sense for children to spy, because you would be less likely to suspect that a child is a spy. So in many cases, they might be better at spying than adults.
That's right. Not only are children sometimes on secret spy missions, but animals have been used as spies too.
All right, you've crossed the line. Animals as spies? That is absurd, and it can't possibly be true.
Oh, it is absolutely true. There is an animal that has commonly been used as a spy for over a century. A camera has been attached to the animal using a harness, and then the animal was sent into enemy territory to take lots of pictures. Those pictures could then be used to learn more about the enemy.
The question of the week is, what animal has been used as a spy, taking pictures of enemy territory? The animal has been used during wartime, during the First World War, the Second World War, the Cold War, and more. Can you guess which sneaky animal was involved in such mischief?
While you're thinking about the answer, let's learn more about spies.
Spies are also sometimes called agents or assets. Spies are usually normal people with normal jobs who get recruited to spy. That means that someone approaches them and encourages them to steal information.
Let's say you were a janitor, so your job is to help care for and clean a building. In many ways, that's a pretty ordinary job. Now, let's say you were working as a janitor at a place where there might be secret information that's valuable to other people.
The Olympics are happening now, so let's say you were the janitor at an Olympic Committee building. There might be information in the building that has value to other countries that are trying to beat your country in the Olympics.
Someone might approach you and offer you money to steal information about the strategy and tactics your Olympic team plans to use during a competition, which would help give their country an unfair advantage.
So, even though you're a janitor and wouldn't normally deal with that kind of information, you might have the access to that information because you help care for the building the information is kept in. Others might see you as a perfect spy because who would expect a janitor might try to steal information?
That's exactly right. Stealing valuable and secret information is what spies do. Perhaps someone from Pepsi approaches you and asks you to try to steal the recipe for Coca-Cola.
Ooh, this is getting interesting. Stealing the recipe would be hard to do. That's because the recipe is actually located inside a vault in the Coca-Cola headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia.
So it would take you a long time to get that information if you're ever able to get it at all. First, you would probably need to get a job at the Coca-Cola headquarters, and then you would have to figure out a way to get access to the super secret recipe locked up in the vault.
Become good friends with the employee that has the code to the vault.
That's one idea, but it's probably too obvious. But gaining trust with people who have access to the information you want is definitely one way to spy.
Maybe I can bribe the vault guy with some money.
That's another interesting idea, but I can't imagine it would work. The recipe has been a secret for about 140 years. It's hard to believe a few dollars would be enough to get access to the recipe. But I like your creativity. You're not a spy, are you?
Of course not. Using children under 15 as spies is against international law. It is rare to find children 15 or older that are spies, but it has happened before.
The examples we've given about spies so far have been using spies to steal information for a competitive edge in sports or in business. But the most likely time for spies to be at work is during wartime. Spies are often used by one government to spy on another country.
In the United States, the use of spies goes back centuries. Hercules Mulligan was a spy during the Revolutionary War. He worked at a clothing store in New York City. Many of his customers were British officers. While they were shopping in his store, he spoke to them, gaining their trust over time. Little did they know, he collected information on them and sent it to the colonists, including George Washington.
He was very clever. For example, he might ask a British soldier when he needs his uniform back. The answer would alert colonists when the British might attack.
One time, a British officer even told him that he needed his coat back because he was on a mission to capture George Washington that day. After getting the news from Hercules Mulligan's slave, Cato, George Washington was able to change locations to make sure he was safe.
Hercules Mulligan passed away at the age of 80, and he was buried next to his close friend, none other than Alexander Hamilton, who was a Revolutionary War hero and was appointed by President Washington as the first Secretary of the Treasury.
Even though the Revolutionary War happened about 250 years ago, spying has been around for much longer than that. The ancient Chinese and ancient Egyptians were using spies more than 2,000 years ago.
In more recent times, governments have created their own organizations that are used for spying. Here in the United States, we have the CIA, which stands for the Central Intelligence Agency. The CIA and other government-created spy organizations collect information on enemies.
In the United Kingdom, the Secret Intelligence Service is called the MI6. During World War II, the British created something called the double cross system.
Usually, when spies are captured, they are put in jail or sometimes even executed. The British thought of a way to make foreign spies valuable by turning them into something called double agents.
So check this out. If a German spy was captured by the British during World War II, the British would often use those spies to find out information about the Germans. In other words, the spy would continue to pretend to be spying for Germany, but they would actually be spying for Great Britain.
Great Britain turned more than 40 German spies into double agents. Not only did they use the double agents to gather information about Germany, but they also used them to give fake information to the Germans to confuse them during wartime, helping the British even more.
There are lots of amazing stories from history about spies, like the ones we just mentioned from the Revolutionary War and from World War II. Even though spies have been around for a long time and spies work for different countries or intelligence agencies, they usually follow the same 5 steps, often called the intelligence cycle.
Step 1 is planning. This is when the goals of the spying are decided, and the plan is put in place to achieve those goals.
Step 2 is collection. This is when the spies collect all the information they need. The information usually comes from lots of different people and from different documents, and sometimes spies have to use very creative ways to collect information.
Step 3 is processing. Spies can return to the intelligence agency with tens of thousands of pages of information. That information has to be processed so that the most important bits of information are identified.
Step 4 is analysis. The important information is analyzed so the intelligence can decide what it all means.
The final step is something called dissemination. In other words, now that we have the information, what are the next steps? Sometimes the information that comes from spying leads to more questions. If that's the case, the spy might be sent back out to gather more information, and the intelligence cycle starts all over again from step 1.
A lot of these steps seem like the same way a detective might work. Is there a difference between detectives and spies?
I agree that a lot of it is the same, but there is one huge difference between detectives and spies. Detectives work out in the open, and they let people know that they are detectives gathering information. Spies, on the other hand, always work secretively and don't want their identities known. For that reason, many spies will wear disguises like costumes, fake facial hair, wigs, or prosthetics to hide their identities.
Alright, now that we know a whole lot about spies, let's bring my brother in here to drop some more knowledge on all of us. He has been digging up some juicy tidbits about spies that will amaze and surprise us all. Here is Noah with 5 unbelievable facts you need to know about spying. Fact number 1. Spies have their own lingo that they use to communicate. For example, when a spy says babysitter, they're actually referring to a bodyguard. A cobbler is a spy that makes fake documents, like fake driver's license and fake passports. A cover refers to the fake identity of a spy, so if a spy is pretending to be a pharmacist, that would be the spy's cover. If a spy is referred to as naked, that means that they are working without a cover. Fact number 2. In the 1970s, spies would sometimes need to put something down in enemy territory that would identify the position as an area to attack. The problem was that they needed to make sure that the object they put down wouldn't be touched, because if it was moved, it might ruin the plan. That's why they used something called the Jude transmitters. These transmitters would identify their position, but the enemy wouldn't think of touching them because they looked like poop. Gross! Fact number 3. Invisible ink has been used by spies for centuries to help hide the secret information. Invisible ink is ink that won't show up on paper unless the paper is treated with heat or a chemical. That means that the person reading the letter would usually hold the letter over a burning candle or put a chemical liquid on the paper to reveal the secret message. George Washington and his spies used invisible ink during the Revolutionary War. They usually sent boring letters to each other, but they had hidden messages between the lines that were disguised using invisible ink. Fact number 4. The most well-known spy in the world is probably James Bond, who, by the way, isn't real. He is a character in a bunch of movies. James Bond movies have grossed over $7.8 billion. In the movies, he goes by codename Agent 007. Even though James Bond isn't real, he is still based on a real spy that was friends with the creator of James Bond movies, Ian Fleming. The person James Bond is based on has a nickname that's not quite as cool as Agent 007. James Bond is inspired by a spy of the name of Wilford Dunderdale, and his nickname was Biffy. Fact number 5. Mo Berg was a Major League Baseball player. He played catcher for the Boston Red Sox, Chicago White Sox, the Cleveland Indians, and the Washington Senators. During World War II, he became a spy for the United States. He was a great spy because he was fluent in 8 different languages. He went on missions to South America and Europe collecting information for the United States.
Noah crushing it as usual with his 5 facts you need to know. The one about doo-doo transmitters is absolutely hysterical. Who would think that something that looks like poop could be used to spy on you?
Spies have used lots of crazy gadgets, like umbrellas with poison tips, exploding pencil cases, lipstick pistols, and shoes with transmitters that were able to record conversations. But one of the strangest spy gadgets is the answer to our question of the week. Which animal has been used as a spy, taking pictures of enemy territory?
Before drones were a thing, pigeons were sent on missions with cameras attached, and the pigeons were released into enemy territory. While there, the camera would take hundreds of pictures before the pigeon returned back to its handler. Then, the pictures were analyzed to see if anything interesting could be discovered.
This makes me wonder, if you remember Bert, the character from Sesame Street, he loved pigeons. Maybe Bert was really a spy.
Come on, Dad, you're being ridiculous.
Just think about it. He was so innocent, and you would never suspect that he was up to something. In many ways, Bert would have been the perfect spy. What do you think?
I think you're crazy, and we should probably end this episode before you say something else that's really silly.
Well, that's a wrap for this week's episode.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast, number 266, on Spies.
Great job, Olivia, and great job, Jude, Maddox, Rowen, and Evander, for the super sneaky episode topic suggestion. Before we say goodbye for the week, we have a special listener to thank.
We want to thank River for the 5-star review.
It says, "Hi, my name is River. I am curious about Olivia and Noah. What is Olivia's favorite sport? And what is Noah's favorite food? Best podcast."
My favorite sport is soccer. I love playing soccer for my travel soccer team, the Werewolves. I also love watching my favorite soccer team, the New York Red Bulls, on TV and in person at Red Bull Arena.
And my favorite food is French fries. I can eat them all day long.
Thanks for the review, River. 5-star reviews really help the podcast, and we read every single review that comes in, so we appreciate taking the time to share the love. Join us next week when we will get curious about holidays. As always, thank you so much for listening and getting curious with us.